Hello, I'm Demon Gun with the Virtual Tabletop Journey, and I figured I would do a video on my initial thoughts about Talespire, which went into beta today. I've been very excited about Talespire, been waiting a while. There was a few hangups with the beta getting released, but I'm super happy and excited with what they have delivered. So first up, there is a wide variety of tiles in here, but I would say personally it feels pretty limited just in their first tile set. Again, we're in beta, so it's definitely not a gripe. And in fact, the Discord is alive with folks that are already doing custom 3D modeling for it. I don't know what those systems are going to be called or what they're going to do, but I do know that it should be possible at some point to export prefabs and such to a 3D manipulation program, modify them, bring them back in, do all kinds of stuff with minis and templates. There's a huge open source community around 3D objects that is just gonna fall in love with this program. I can see it now. So I really do hope that there's some sort of asset store in the future. Myself personally, I would really like to come in here, make a map, and then be able to monetize it somehow to just distribute back into the community, even if it's like a pay what you want, that kind of thing. So what I do is I convert a lot of old school 2D maps into VTT, like newer VTT assets for Roll20 and for Arc and Forge primarily. And I'm hoping to do the same with Talespire. There are a couple of tips that I have or changes kind of the way that I think about mapping that will need to change, and I'll talk about those a little bit later. So for now, I've got to say that the lighting in this particular building, so this building is, it is a glassmaker's shop. I've used the tavern tile set to put it together. I mean, I kind of did what I could, and I think it came out pretty well. With the buildings in this, it's architecture, like you're literally building a whole building. So to start from the ground floor here, so there's the entryway, there's a little bar, there's a forge. With lighting in these buildings, and the lighting in this game is, or excuse me, in this, is it a game? I think it's a game. Is amazing. So in this instance, I have inside set to show light all the time. That doesn't have to be the case. In the event that you are using a abandoned castle or a cave or a sewer, you can turn off the interior lights and then you're reliant on light sources. I'm not real sure how light sources work. Again, I'm just familiar with the very basics of the builder. For all I know, this could actually be producing light, the forge here, and there's this lantern over on the wall here. I don't know how vision works yet on tokens, but I'm sure I'll probably do a video on it at some point in the future. I just thought it was kind of a nice thing where if they're in the city, you know, maybe they're just talking to a shopkeep or something, that we don't have to worry about that. So, so that's some lighting stuff. One other thing that I'd like to point out is just the learning curve on knowing when things can be placed close to walls or not. In this instance, I have a 1x2 wall here, and I have a little crate. And I'd really like it to be closer to the wall, but I just can't place it there. Won't let me. I'm not real sure why. It could just be that this particular object always takes up a whole square. But over here, I have this corner prefab, a 2x2 corner prefab, but it did let me put the bookcase next to it. So it could just be getting familiar with the different objects. For this wall here, it's actually on the north side of the tile down below it. So maybe that has something to do with it. But when I was looking at, for example, this forge right here, I was having the same kind of trouble. Underneath the forge, I actually put like a castle tile because I didn't think that they would put a forge on the floor. If I were to do this again, maybe I'd start some techniques like this, where it's like you place it a little off, or what can I do here? What can I do here? Okay, so I'll do this. I'll duplicate it. You know, I'll make another more out here, and maybe I would do something like I'd move it out. I'd move it out one. Maybe have it flush, something like that. Anyway, there might be some tricks to getting it so that it looks right. but it'll just require a little bit more playing around. Anyway, so that's the first floor. There is a whole interactive component to this where they have systems for objects that can be interacted with. In this case, doors is something that's kind of a big deal. With doors, you can open the doors. Like as a GM, you can just do it. For players, there's a system for asking permission. So a player will ask permission to open a particular door, and I guess there's some queue or something when you're the GM where you can authorize these actions. So you don't have them open a door and see a monster when you didn't want them to open the door to do that. So I'm curious what else that applies to. So they come in here, and over here on the right is where you actually slide which layer we're going to be looking at, right? So you go all the way to the top, all the way to the bottom. Man, that effect is just so cool. Like the little things that they've done to make it feel like you're sitting around the table. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So this second floor here, these are theoretically posts that are holding up the roof. What I've actually done here is I built a chimney on top of my thing downstairs. And this part here is pretty fancy. It actually, I was able to build it all the way up through to the roof. They have the tile sets already in the beta to do this kind of thing, which is I find incredibly impressive. They didn't need that detail in a beta. And if this is the quality of the 3D objects and how everything's going to be laid out in the beta, I'm really excited to see what the final release is going to be. In this case, the module that I'm working from, the author has the guy's bed in the same room with the chimney, and I guess that's fine. Maybe it gets cold. Actually, now that I think about it, maybe that does make sense. But yeah, that I was able to build it all the way up through to the roof was pretty cool. So putting the roof together was something that I've never really dealt with when putting walls and stuff together. But if I were to build this out and actually have it be like maybe several buildings in a row, or have a catwalk, or you have players who are going to want to climb in the chimney, or not climb in the attic, it's a lot. There's a lot of vertical opportunities here that I've never had on an actual tabletop. I will say that getting these roofs lined up was a bit of a challenge. So there's these corner pieces here that I just duplicated, and I kept moving them up to the top. But getting them lined up was particularly difficult. And so one of the strategies that I ended up using was I took a 2x2 tavern floor, and you just kind of like, I'm getting better at it. That took me a long time before. So you get this guy here, and then you just build on top of it, and then you just remove that floor. In this instance, see if I can do it again. What did I do? I did this, I clicked, and then you can do this whole, yeah, so you just do that number, and then build the stuff on top of it. It seems dim, but I think it's supposed to be that dim. Anyway, can I just select it like that? And then go down. Is that a thing? And then delete it? Yeah, worked, cool. Make sure I didn't delete the rest of my roll. I just deleted, I deleted all it. Didn't work, take it back. Okay, so anyway. Even watching things get deleted is fun. So then you bit off the rest of the roof. So, notes. My notes on converting things from 2D to 3D for those that do that kind of thing. First off, just to show you an example of the map that I'm working from. This in the map, see, okay, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We've got 7 squares here. Well, in 3-dimensional space, walls are not just lines that don't take up any room. And they even kind of do in this, but this that would normally be 7 squares across becomes 10 because a wall actually takes a square now. And so if you're like me and you're converting things from older modules into new systems, my rule of thumb is to try to have the playable space reflect the old material. So if the old material shows it as a 3x3 room, and you can put your mini in 9 squares in any given room, that this should still be the case when translating it to 3D space, like I've done in that room there. And that's just kind of a rule for me when working on these old things. And I think it'll work out. I haven't put any minis in here to see whether, like, how cramped it is, or to get a general feel for it. For this building, if I were able to put these against the walls, I believe that would make it feel more open. It feels a little cramped to me right now, but that's all tweaking. At this point, it's all tweaking and dressing. Yeah, so overall, Talespire has been really great to work with. It's amazing. It feels good. It's snappy and responsive. The controls are intuitive. I mean, I'm a kind of a WASD kind of person, so it works for me to get around. I'm curious if folks are familiar with 3D programs, whether that's kind of the rule set, or how well those skills translate over. See what that's like. But yeah, so 90 minutes worth of work in this works great. One thing that actually that I learned that they don't really, maybe they talk about it and I didn't read it, is that my computer crashed several times. Not anything to do with Talespire, like my machine, like there was a power outage and I lost, like my power went out. And my map was saved in real time to Steam, which is insane. That's really cool. There's some sort of cloud saving tech going on. And I think it's because right now I'm actually supposed to be in a game with other players. Like while playing with other players, I could just hit a button and be in that build mode. And so it needs to save your maps in real time in order to synchronize with the other players. Or I'm not real certain what's going on under the hood, but I do know that there's no click a button to save. It's just, this is the map and this is what it is. Yeah, so first thoughts, works real great. Again, this is just build mode, very basic. I haven't touched on anything in the Fog of War, anything in tokens, or anything to do with creatures and the like. But I'm excited to take a look at that and maybe post some videos about it too. Anyway, I hope this has been useful to give folks an idea of what Talespire is and what's going on, and pointers if anybody is also trying to convert old modules into the 3D space. Anyway, take care. Again, I'm Demon Gun with Virtual Tabletop Journey. Have a good one.